here is the belly piece. I have it marked on this side. The P is right here. What we need to do is fold it right sides together, and the only sewing that we need to do on this right away is to sew this dart. So we're going to start at 1/4 of an inch of a seam allowance down here at the beginning, and then we're going to work our way up until we actually end up sewing off of the fabric at the P mark. So let's do that. Okay, can you see that? So we started at 1/4 of an inch and we did it all the way up until we reached the P mark, eventually working our way off the fabric. Then when we open it up, we get this nice little rounded belly. So let's add, we've just got our tail and our feet, so let's add the body to the back side of the fox. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom at this Z mark right here, and we're going to line up this stitch line on the body to this one right here. So we're going to line up here, we're going to pin it, and we're going to pin it all the way up the side of the body until we reach, and they should line up and all meet right here at the tip. This is the neck. Turn my camera a little bit, geez. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do our pinning. Okay, there's one side. If you are using a fabric that is a little bit more fluffy, like minky or fleece, something stretchy and thick, I would really recommend pinning a lot more often than I do with my cotton. So I would even pin like up to 1/4 of an inch, especially around the legs and around curves. That, especially minky, is super slippery under the sewing machine foot pedal, so don't be hesitant to use a lot of pins, way more than I'm using here. Cotton doesn't slide as much, so it doesn't need as many pins, but I would really recommend a lot more pins for those thicker fabrics, and which are knit, so with the knit fabrics. Okay, I just pinned it here, and look at how much extra I have. That is terrible. On this side, it almost lines up perfectly, so I know I pinned that one correctly. This one is way off, so I am going to repin it because I must have messed up somewhere, because it really should not be that far off. So let's try again. Okay, see how that is? Let me show you. It lined up way better this time. Look at that. So that lined up way better. I like it even usually a little bit closer than that, but I will accept that. So let's sew it. Once again too, if you want to baste it to make sure that those legs are in place, feel free to baste it again to make sure that you like the placement of everything before it actually is all together. And it doesn't hurt to baste it. It takes a lot less time to baste something than it does to unstitch something. So just go slow, work your way around those curves. We're gonna start right up here and work our way all the way around and back up again. So if you feel like you need to baste it first and then stitch through it, do that and then do it straight. I'm just gonna stitch it straight through. Another thing to watch out for is make sure you didn't pin your little tail or legs out. Make sure they're up and out of the way so you didn't actually stitch any of those, pin any of those and stitch those. Those aren't very fun to unstitch either. Okay, so this is what it's gonna look like after you're done. Looks like, see, this is something to check for. Look at my stitching on this side. It didn't look as close, as far to the edge on this side as it does on this side. So I think I'm gonna need to close them up or stitch right there again to make sure that it is a little bit closer to the edge. You don't want anything that close to the edge. So anyway, after you get all stitched, especially if you're basting, open them up and check to make sure of the placement of everything. So because of that little really tight stitch right there where it got so close to the edge, he's a lot more likely to fray there. So check for little frayed edges on things, especially right here at the edge of your feet or of your legs. That's gonna be a place that is gonna be a little bit more of a tricky place that you just need to check and make sure before you sew them all closed that you got them in a good position. So if you see frayed edges in there, unstitch his little body, at least this part, and pull those legs in farther so that you're stitching them up higher so you don't have frayed edges and the legs worrying about them coming off. The other thing you want to check for is to make sure his feet are facing the right direction. Make sure that they're both going forward. That's something that is always a little awkward if you don't turn them around, and make sure they're going the right direction. And another place to check to make sure it's okay is right here, if you are happy with the actual placement of where the tail ended up. I think this will look good, and when it is all stuffed, that little bit of an edge where you're not quite up to the FF is okay. But anything more than that, and you're gonna have a little bit of a hole there because we didn't actually stitch that spot. So make sure that your tail is butt up against that FF point. Let's see, so anyway, here is the finished little guy. His body is all done. The next thing that we need to do is add his arms on the neckline and stitch his head in. So we are really close.